So that's the plan, a hobby station with ample storage, paint racks, brush holders, and display shelves, which will make for awesome miniature painting projects and filming, while also providing an awesome backdrop for videos. For those out of the loop, over the past month or so I've been 3D printing a hobby station that doubles as my new YouTube backdrop. Functionally, it's been finished for a while, but now that the backboard is done, stocked with Painted for Combat projects, and adorned with the channel logo, it's finally actually complete. So today we can take a look at this desk all finished up, and I can finally show you just how I use my tiny 3 square meters of space to enjoy my hobby, as well as to print, paint, and film everything you see here on the channel. I'm Jacob from Painted for Combat, and today we're taking a look behind the curtain, to show you just how I made this channel a reality with the tiny amount of space I have available. At the very beginning of this channel, a little over a year ago now, I wanted to create videos about miniatures from the perspective of someone who just enjoys the hobby, not some competition level painter. So the backdrop wasn't the most important thing. I just set myself up in front of my miniatures display shelf and started talking to the camera. And the camera is where it all started. At the time I was looking around for the best way to film miniature painting and hobbying, and there were a few great videos at the time, all of which resulted in me looking for an affordable camera that was capable of 4K footage. This would allow me to capture a larger image and be able to zoom in 2x, while still having decent 1080p footage. After a bit of digging, I settled on picking up a cheap enough second-hand G8.5, and an even cheaper 12-32mm lens. And this more than handled what I needed to be able to do. A decent enough camera and lens to film the hobby itself, while still giving me a wide enough field of view to actually be able to film talking to the camera in such a cramped space. The small amount of room I have in this apartment is the whole reason this channel exists at all. My hobby was immediately limited to a roughly 3 square meter corner of the room right next to my work desk and PC. And given the limited ventilation I have available, there was no way I would ever be resin printing in this room, hence the channel's eventual focus on FDM printing. All that to say, I could only ever really hope to set up a camera about an arm's length away from me, meaning that 12mm wide-angle lens is absolutely key to what I've been doing here. While the way I film has chopped and changed over the last 12 months, let's take a look at the process in its most recent iteration. Part of this hobby station was designed to accommodate a new camera rig, the newer NK02 overhead camera mount. This is clamped to both sides of my desk to give me more freedom to move around my equipment, but also to try and reduce the amount of shaking that makes its way up to the camera. It's still not a perfect system. Resting my arms on the table while dry brushing or sanding will cause the camera to shake, for example, but it's so much better than it was. Along with that, these threaded clamps, paired with some 3D printed quick release mounts, allow me to move the camera around freely, swapping between camera angles, tripods, and other mounts without needing to always be screwing in new attachments. The new camera rig specifically places the camera a bit further away from the table, giving me the ability to get the whole desk in frame when I need to, while still allowing me to zoom all the way in on a mini. And if you've been keeping up with the channel, you will have already seen this range in recent videos. Wide angles for terrain and larger projects, medium shots for vehicles and the like, and tight zooms for actually miniature minis. I recently swapped out my small hobby station lamp in favour of an LED film light, which is mounted at a similar angle to the camera. This helps to give me a more all-round ambient light while I'm painting. I picked the newer 192. It's got a good brightness range and can be temperature controlled, letting me find that daylight balance we're often told to look for as miniature painters. And the nice thing about film lights is that they often have a higher CRI than hobby or desk lamps, allowing us to see certain colours better when looking at a model. I'll leave the link to a video up here that covers colour temperature and CRI of your hobby lighting a little more in depth, for those who don't know what I'm talking about or just want to learn more. There's a great video by the channel 52 Miniatures that covers this really in depth from specifically a hobby perspective. Yes, this gives me good ambient light, and a pretty great amount of light for filming as well, though I do sometimes still feel the need for a side lamp that I can use to get a bit more light pointing at the model from my eyeline. So if you have any good suggestions for a compact desk-mounted lamp, drop a comment below. And for those that care, I like to use sheets of EVA foam as a desk mat for filming, as it disperses the light nicely and looks cleaner on camera compared to something like a cutting mat. Plus, it can very easily be repurposed and replaced once it starts getting a bit messy. In terms of lighting for talk to camera, I have an old battery-powered photography light that serves as my key light off to the side, but over my time working on the channel, I've also picked up some super cheap USB-powered LED panel lights which often serve as my fill lights or rim lighting and work perfectly fine. Both my table light and talk to camera lights are small compared to other miniatures channels who use big, proper, expensive film lights with fancy softboxes and things. If the camera is at maximum an arm's length from me, I definitely do not have the space for big, fancy film lights. Nor can I keep my lighting or camera permanently set up, as this is a space that I also have to live in. Luckily, these smaller panel lights that I use are super compact and reasonably easy to set up and take down for filming. While we're talking about lighting, I've also installed some more practical lighting to my printer shelves. Firstly, an LED garage light, which is a nice work light when looking at the printer, which I paired with an LED strip around the back, helping to add some interest to shots of the A1. For voiceover and talk to camera, my audio primarily consists of using my old AT2020 USB condenser microphone, recorded via Audacity over on the computer, which allows me to clean up the audio for a much more professional sound quality than I should be able to get from a USB microphone. And all of my videos are edited using entirely free software and sounds. I assemble and edit my videos in DaVinci Resolve, paired with a few asset packs for transitions and effects, and all of my music is taken from the free YouTube audio library. Now, let's go back to the camera for a moment. As you might have seen before, that initial cheap lens that I picked up eventually took a tumble and started struggling to focus properly. So I ended up finding myself a much nicer 12 to 60mm lens that has allowed for some of the more cinematic looking shots as of recent. And paired with that purchase, I also picked up a dummy battery. This is essentially a power cable in the shape of the camera's battery, meaning that the camera no longer runs out of battery. Unlike in the past, where I would be lucky to get 90 minutes of filming in before having to recharge the camera. A little annoying when you're trying to sit down and film yourself painting miniatures for 4 to 6 hours. And to make filming miniatures a little easier in this cramped space where the camera is too far away for me to see, I use a super cheap old tablet with the app specifically for my camera that lets me refocus from a distance, meaning I don't have to reach up, refocus the camera, and then wait for it to stop shaking. This also has the added benefit of me always being able to see what the camera is seeing, so that I can make sure that I'm not blocking the shot with my head. Something that did admittedly happen far too often in the past. When it comes to filming reveals for my paint jobs, I often use a piece of EVA foam as a backdrop for this as well. But a friend recently got me this lighting box as a gift, which has been amazing for easy, consistent lighting of reveal shots, and paired with a small turntable, this is how I record the ends to almost all of my project videos. And really, that wraps up how I make my videos. No, it's not big and flashy like other channels, just simply because it can't be. My space doesn't allow for it. A decent camera, good audio, and a few simple lights is really all I have the space for. And yet, when it comes to making the most of this space, not just as someone who creates videos, but also as a hobbyist, there's even more to take into consideration. Because this isn't just where I film. I also spend a lot of my time here, so it needs to work as a space for me to actually hobby as well. Garage shelving has always been a godsend, able to fit into just about any space. This corner shelf has given me so much more storage than I previously had, giving me room for a couple of printers, filament storage, and even some space to store minis and filming equipment. And next to that is my models themselves, along with some of my other bits and bobs. This shelf is very much still a work in progress, and I'm currently trying to store some of my less display-worthy models in drawers, so that I can eventually make this more of a display shelf for my cooler paint jobs and recent D&D minis, along with a few extra drawers for storage of generic supplies, and of course, terrain. My terrain bins are already almost overflowing, hence only doing smaller terrain builds here on the channel right now, but once I do eventually move to somewhere with a bit more space, I'm very excited to do some much larger scale terrain projects. So there it is, my full setup. A hobby space, printer workshop, and YouTube film set all crammed into the corner of this small office space. A setup that has afforded me countless hours of printing, painting, and video creation, which all brings us back to this, the new hobby station. A necessary next step to move away from the cluttered space, which often made it hard to sit down and paint, annoying to film models, and made it especially tricky to frame and light myself talking to camera. This new desk setup that you've seen me put together is designed to make for better videos, from lighting and filming miniature painting itself, to simply providing a better backdrop for videos, as you're seeing here. Yes, this will likely continue to evolve and change over time, and I do eventually hope to have a much larger space for content creation and hobbying, but for now, this little setup in the corner of my room has gotten me this far. So no matter how much space you have for your hobby, I'm sure you can make the most of it too. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a good one.